Welcome to another broadcast of the Arthur D. Schwartz Philosophic Perspectives on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. All past shows are archived. You can pick them up at ArtistFirst.com. Here he is, clearly the most intelligent man on our radio station, Mr. Arthur D. Schwartz.
Okay. Glad to find that out. I doubt that it's true. This is Arthur D. Schwartz. Hello, everybody. Welcome again to the show. So today, it's all about indie publishing, indie film. I realized that I just became involved in this whole thing. It started off with my book, and now I'm on to, basically, I'm an indie radio host, I suppose. And I've always loved indie films. And I'm really getting into the idea of developing a community of indie writers, artists, filmmakers, and so forth. I think it's actually a very, very important thing. It really is. I mean, I think it's extremely important because the mainstream sometimes is just so darn disappointing. Honestly, I mean, that some people might think that's conceited, but I don't think so. I have a feeling that most people listening to me would probably share that opinion. And it's goes back to the whole, being this being a philosophy program called Philosophic Perspectives. I mean, it does go back to the herd mentality of Nietzsche that he criticizes. So I'm really something I'm beginning to, I've been this way all along, but I'm getting into it more and more and more. I wrote my book, I self-published it, so that's independent publishing, self-publishing, indie publishing, whatever you want to call it. And I realized in a sense that when it was published, it was actually quite apropos because the book, you might say, is all about looking for an independent point of view or a different perspective. I mean, the idea of philosophic perspectives, I mean, what's the most important way of getting a new perspective is to break away from the mainstream culture. And so it's not just, forming some ideological or philosophical or spiritual or business or whatever, a perspective. It's a lot of it is formed in one way or the other by culture. And so in my book, I talk about institutes of contra-paradigmatic research. I've mentioned this several times before, but I think it's so important to have that. That's from a scientific point of view, getting new ideas. Not trying to be smug and repress them or lose your tenureship if you're a professor because you have a different point of view, but rather it should be encouraged. I strongly believe in having a culture that encourages diversity of opinion. And the irony is, if you have a culture that encourages diversity of opinion, you know what's going to happen, folks? You know what's going to happen? There will be more consensus. That's the paradox. There is more conflict when people harden their views onto, with a certain ideology, a certain restricted tunnel vision, a certain paradigm. That's actually by trying to stay the narrow path of whatever your discipline is or whatever your ideology is or your religion is, yada yada, right down the line. By doing that, you're actually, by staying too close to a single theme, to a single perspective, you're actually creating conflict. But when you open your mind to a diversity of conflict, when you see the value of another point of view, you may not agree with it, but there's some things that you might agree with. That is the germ of consensus. And so that's why I think this is such an important thing. I'm going to talk a little bit later about this new website I created. Well, it's a meetup, but we can all can join. It's www.creativityexpo.net. Creativityexpo.net. I'm going to talk about it later, but I'm really working hard to do is to get people, independent writers, independent filmmakers, independent artists. I mean, artists, that's one thing about artists. Most of them are usually independent anyway, but still, there's obviously always been independent artists. There's always been independent authors, too. But it's just something that our society really needs. And so I'm going to talk about trying to bring together not like-minded people. That's actually oxymoronic according to what the line of thought I've been proposing, but people who are involved in the arts, people who are involved in serious writing, filmmaking, so forth and so on, and to provide a forum. I created this site to do that, and part of the reason I did it because I sure wish someone else would do it, because I could use a forum myself. I'm finding that I have to create my own forum, such as what I'm doing on this radio show. But this site is really dedicated to bring other people on board. I think what we need is a little bit of courage, too. I will say this about the herd mentality. It's not just about a culture. Like most things, there's two sides to it. There is the external influence of your culture, of your society, your religion, your so forth. So things that surround you in growing up, they nurture you in a certain way. But you know what? A lot of it too has to do with good old-fashioned courage, or that Yiddish word chutzpah, because sometimes the reason is not so much. Well, I guess it is the herd mentality, but it's the fear of being different. I just want to just tell people out there who might be listening, who might be an artist, might be an author, might be a filmmaker, might have some original ideas. Stand up. Come on. Don't be afraid. Get out there. Show your stuff. And if you're knocked down, so what? That's what it's all about. And so I'm really hoping, and it's not, I tell you what, I'll be honest with you, it's not coming very easy, but I know it's going to work eventually. And so actually, I'm kind of I got some notes here I'm following, but I'm not going to follow in any order. So I said I would talk about this Creativity Expo thing later, but you know what? Why don't I get into it right now? And so you can just, it's a local site, but I have a domain for it. So it's creativity.com, the word creativityexpo.net. Excuse me, I really screwed up there. Creativityexpo.net. The word creativityexpo.net. And so that'll take you to the site, and it can, that'll show you what's involved. Anyone can join. And on the discussion board is an opportunity there for, if you have, on the discussion board, what do I call this? Oops, I turned off the connection. That's why I don't see it. But, potential presenters. On this site, I'm looking for presenters for the group to actually present to the Social Philosophizers Club that I talk about many times. Well, I have an ad, which you'll hear later in the show. But also, the double purpose is to invite people onto this show. So the creativityexpo.net site is designed primarily to attract people, independent artists, writers, filmmakers, etc., not only to present, if you're in the Boston area, to present to the group, but also to come on to this to this show and have me talk to you, interview you, and go from there. So why don't you take a look at it? I'm going to actually read what I say here. The Creativity Expo is an opportunity for independent writers, filmmakers, artists, and others to network and thrive. A primary mission of the Creativity Expo is to foster a platform for artistic, creative, and intellectually inspired individuals to network and promote their work. Many, if not most, events have a minimal admission fee, which creates ideal opportunities for all writers and artists to present their work. Creativity Expo is a partner site with the Social Philosophizers Club and the Philosophic Perspectives Internet radio show. By becoming involved with the Creativity Expo, you may be given the opportunity or an opportunity to make a presentation at the Social Philosophizers Club and or to be interviewed on my radio show. I look forward to meeting you at upcoming events as we build a community of independent writers and artists. So that says it. If there's anyone out there, most of you I'm sure are not in the Boston area, but it's like I said, it's a double purpose. It's to see if you want to come on to the show, if you have something you want to talk about, and if I feel that it's is a good idea, we'll do it. So, by the way, you can contact me at radio@arthurdschwartz.com. I have been having a spam problem, and right now there is a slight possibility, that your mail might be rejected because of this problem I've been having. I think mail coming from yahoo.com is going to be rejected. I just discovered that. But it will be rectified soon. So, but if for some reason you can't get a hold of me, you can always go onto Twitter and contact me there. Or you could also email to my other primary email would be info@integralhypnosis.com. That one definitely works. info@integralhypnosis.com, but radio@arthurdschwartz.com should work as well too. Okay, so I hope some of you. I hope I've struck a chord somewhere out there, and I'm hoping that I'll hear from somebody. Well, this independent movement in terms of publishing, particularly indie publishing, but of course independent filmmaking. Indie filmmaking has been around for a long time, and I think it's been accelerated by the internet. Clearly, it's something that's radically changing society. With all the criticism that Amazon.com gets, and a lot of it is justifiable. They have been a great boon to indie publishing for sure, both in their, in pioneering the ebook the way they have with the Kindle, and also their CreateSpace platform for printed work. Another major player in the print area of independent publishing would be Ingram Spark, the Ingram company. They're a leader in the field as well. So these are things that are very important to me, and I feel is something that has the potential to reshape society. It really does. Now, while I was doing some preparation for the show, I found this article online at the independentpublisher.com. Independentpublisher.com, and it's an article written by Craig Manning, indie groundbreaking book, Bibliodiversity. Bibliodiversity, and that book is written by Susan Hawthorne. So what I'm going to do is just read a couple of these paragraphs, which actually makes a very strong case, and it's an explanation, you might say, why indie publishing is so important. And so this is reading from Craig Manning's article. Hawthorne knows, referring to Susan Hawthorne, the author, Hawthorne knows the industry, and it's not the least of which. Hawthorne knows the industry and its current challenges, not the least of which are the financial obligations that many major corporate publishers face, with investors, board members, and CEO salaries to consider. Most of the bigger publishers can't afford to take risks on adventurous, exploratory, niche, or left of the mainstream manuscripts. Because of this, the books that get published and promoted from the bigger publishers are often the least risky. That's italicized, the least risky. They are aimed at a homogenized cultural audience, are packed with familiar stories or stock characters, and don't make controversial arguments or present many new ideas. In short, many of the books being pushed our way by the corporate publishing system these days are recycled versions of what we've already read. We've seen that a ton recently in the children's and the young adult sections of the bookstore, where imitators of hugely successful series like Harry Potter, Twilight, and The Hunger Games have struck gold by following the trends instead of creating wholly fresh concepts. Those are just a few examples. But with bibliodiversity, Hawthorne is arguing that a similar follow-the-leader trend is happening across the publishing industry. And as she notes, the consequence for this homogenization is that we all miss out on some of the most groundbreaking and important books out there. In Megacorp Publishing, this is a quote from Susan Hawthorne, in Megacorp Publishing, each book is expected to pay for itself and all the externalities of publishing, such as offices and CEO salaries, Hawthorne writes. And she goes on, it means that books which take off slowly but have long lives, the books that change social norms, are less likely to be published. It seems rather ironic, that's the end of the quote, but Craig Manning goes on, it seems rather ironic, that the freshest and most adventurous books in the world are rarely able to reach an audience, simply because the publishers who could deliver those books to an audience aren't willing to take the financial risks necessary to do so. That reminds me of the pharmaceutical industry, where they won't explore, for example, natural supplements or the refinement of natural supplements because there's no money in it, because you can't patent them. Anyway, I just threw that in as a side. It's a very different subject, but it's just the basic bottom line is the same. We need to create a society where we develop the great breadth of wherever the truth takes us. We need to clear out the barriers, the blocks, the obfuscations that prevent progress, that prevent knowledge, that prevent greater understanding. And so that's why I think creating a culture of intellectual and cultural diversity in the arts and in writing is so very, very important. And so this is actually, by the way, this is the book that Susan Hawthorne wrote is a manifesto for independent. Oh, that's the subtitle. It's bibliodiversity, and the subtitle is a manifesto for independent publishing. And so I know I'm going to buy it. So I want to continue to hammer away at this theme tonight. And I'm becoming a little obsessed by it, I must say. It's because I think it's really obvious that what's taking place. We're becoming a society that's pablum, that is an inability to think creatively, to just simply follow the same old, and it doesn't have to be that way. Nietzsche did, he was not a fan of democracy. I am. But the reason he was not a fan of democracy is because he did, single out an area where democracy is weak. Because there is a danger in a democracy to sink down to the level of the lowest common denominator. it's mass culture. It's the trend. It's what's most popular, and sometimes there needs to be a kind of a non-democratic element that bucks the tide. And I think in a democracy, because you see, in an aristocracy, or even in central, strong central governments, which I certainly do not endorse whatsoever, but they do have an advantage because the elite can lead. What we need in democracies is we don't want elitism whatsoever. What we do want is to protect a focused point of view, even when it may not be popular at the moment. And so when you develop, groups of independent writers, independent filmmakers, independent artists, independent thinkers, innovators, even though it's not popular at the time, what we need to do is to promote them, to promote the potential that they may have, even though it may not be popular at that time. So, that once again, I'm just saying, I am just getting obsessed about this. Let me say it again: creativityexpo.net. creativityexpo.net. I just set it up less than a week ago, I think over the weekend. And I'm hoping that some of you, even though you don't have to be in Boston, because like I said, it's a double purpose there. It's not only to get people to present to the Social Philosophizers Club, but also to possibly come onto my show. So it's for everybody. So anyone listening, feel free to contact me. You'll actually, if you look on the show page, you'll find my number there. I'll give you a hint. It's under the Integral Hypnosis ad on that page. I think my phone number is there. And but you can send emails to me, and you'll get a hold of me, and I'd like to hear from you. Okay, so I think I'm setting up this show a little bit different tonight. I'm just going to have one break, but I'm not going to break off just yet. I just want to mention something about there's something that Herbert Spencer said that reminds that even though, once again, I'm not a Spencerian, I'm not a libertarian, but I certainly have some elements in me, and he was very much against regulation, all that stuff, and the diatribe I'm presenting here against in favor of indie publishing and independent thinking is certainly not having nothing to do with regulation, but it does have a lot to do with the herd mentality. And Herbert Spencer, and Friedrich Nietzsche, I think have a lot of commonality on that point. Okay, so I'm going to take a break now. We're just going to have one break today, and we'll be back in a few minutes.
In Ethical Empowerment, Virtue Beyond the Paradigms, Arthur D. Schwartz presents an ethical theory that is a framework for evaluating moral conundrums that go beyond legalistic rulemaking, dogmatism, and preconditioned thinking. The book is as much an ethical framework for unconventional ideas as it is for staying with convention. Ethical Empowerment is a manifesto of non-doctrinaire perspective. Ultimately, the hypnotic thinking of ideology and dogmatism can only be overcome by returning to the true source and essence of morality, which is nothing less than universal love. Discover how the philosophically liberating approach of the ethical empowerment can be applied to the range of ethical, social, and political controversy. Read about a plan to eliminate all political parties. Entertain the possibility of an overhaul of the patent system and its replacement with a system that rewards inventors while eliminating monopolistic control of patents and technological suppression. Many other transformative ideas are discussed in the book, including issues related to the monetary system, real estate, scientific paradigms, and a rational approach to conspiracy theory. While ethical empowerment will challenge your mind to consider new perspectives, the ethical challenge is always to keep the diversity, depth, and breadth of perspective within the boundaries of love. Ethical Empowerment is available at Amazon.com and most online booksellers in both print and e-book editions. Are you a person who enjoys intellectual social interaction and finds digging deeper into the nature of things, from big issues to everyday life, an important part of the pleasure of life? Social Philosophizers is a Boston area social club for those who desire intellectual socializing. It's a club for both singles and non-singles, and for anyone who finds intellectually mingling to be the best form of social mingling. The club offers a variety of interesting venues such as philosophical get-togethers in private venues, book discussions concerning literature and philosophy, topical discussions over brunch or dinner, guest speakers, theater, after-work mixers, even long philosophical ruminations along nature trails or city streets, and more. If you live in the greater Boston area or occasionally spend time in the area, you can choose a cost-effective membership level that's right for you. Basic membership is free. Find the link on Arthur's Philosophical Perspectives show page at ArtistFirst.com or just search SocialPhilosophizers.com. We hope you'll join Social Philosophizers today. That's SocialPhilosophizers.com.
This is Arthur D. Schwartz. You know, beliefs and disbeliefs can be very powerful. Much like philosophy, hypnotism is concerned with belief. Hypnotherapy, a practical application of hypnotism, may largely be described as the practice of removing false beliefs that form mental blocks to success, to happiness, and to well-being. In my hypnotherapy and philosophical counseling practice, I combine my work in philosophy with hypnotism in order to clear mental blockages that can occur on both conscious and subconscious levels. A mental block may be conscious or subconscious and can be expressed, for example, in the form of anxiety, low self-esteem or low motivation, bad habits, tobacco habits, weight gain, low performance, and much more. If you are interested in using hypnosis and the power of the mind to overcome mental blocks and barriers that have emerged in your life, please feel free to give me a call at 617-964-4800 or visit www.integralhypnosis.com. That's INTEGRAL hypnosis.com.
Thanks for joining us on Philosophic Perspectives on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. Back to your host, Arthur D. Schwartz.
Why, welcome back. So when we left, I was talking a little bit about Nietzsche and the philosopher Herbert Spencer. Well, you know, I think the independent, we'll call it broadly speaking, indie artists, okay, just to generalize it that way, and that would include independent indie publishing, indie filmmaking, and artists, all independent artists, which of course lots of those are out there, and independent thinkers. I mean, I would actually include, people in working the sciences who are and inventors who are just bucking the tide. It's the thing. I have no problem with standard norms, with institutions. That's necessary. I have no problem whatsoever. I just think that they have a inevitable tendency to get rusty, stale, and overly, monolithic in their thinking. I think it's kind of obvious. And so my dream is that we have, once again, I talked about many, many times, institutes of contra-paradigmatic research that would be basically funded to test the paradigm. So that's on the scientific level. But what I'm talking about here is developing a culture of independent thinkers, independent writers, independent artists. That's an analog to that we begin to take more seriously because you'll get original thinking. I know myself that let me tell you, I was in graduate school in philosophy way back in the mid-'70s, really, and I didn't stay very long. I foolishly found myself in a department that was anti-Wittgensteinian. At that time, I was very much interested in Ludwig Wittgenstein and his later work, and I still am, but at that point, it was my whole picture, really. And, of course, I was in a place where they hated Wittgenstein. So, I found myself in an environment that, was I was alienated. I wasn't getting support. So I kind of went my own way, and I published my book as an independent writer because I figured out that I wasn't going to get published by a mainstream publisher, and so I decided to do it myself. Partially because I didn't want to waste the time. Well, I wouldn't say waste, but I really wanted to get it out there. I spent about 6 years developing it, researching and developing it, and conceptualizing it, another 6 years actually in the writing of it. And I wanted to get it out there, so that's what I did. But I'll tell you something: if I had stayed in the mainstream, if I'd gone the mainstream route, conventional academia, the book never would have been written, or it would have been totally different than it is. Some might say, well, good. That's okay. I like the book. I like it a lot, and that I wrote. And it would have been very, very different because I had the ability, since I was an independent writer, to come up with my own ideas and to not have to conform. No, there's two sides to the coin. But I'm telling you, this is just one person's point of view. I am very happy the way things turned out. I have a system of ethics that I really feel works, and it's not dogmatic. It has to, of course, it involves consensus building, but it provides a framework for consensus building and a framework to navigate the fields of unconventional thinking. And so all I can say is from my own personal experience, I can see that something I did would not have been done if I did not go the independent route. That's not to make a judgment that my book's a great book or anything like that, but I'm just telling you that it's a book that wouldn't have happened. And from my own point of view, and I'm getting positive feedback from others, I think that's a good thing. But whether or not the book's a good book or not a good book is really beside the point. What is important is that we as a culture develop protocols, develop organizations, develop social organizations, develop networks that encourage a different kind of thinking. Now, of course, there are groups like that all over the place, but they are universally ignored. That's the thing. They're universally ignored. So, for example, in the self-publishing industry right now, while it is possible to be very successful, it's extremely rare. Extremely rare, because there's no the money isn't there to market the book, to distribute the book, you have reviewers who won't review the books. They'll only review books from mainstream publishing. So the cards are stacked against it, just like the cards are stacked against scientists who go outside the narrowly structured lines of academic research. Stay with, otherwise, once again, they can lose their job, lose their funding, and ruin their career. Other than that, they're fine. So this is, ladies and gentlemen, this is serious business. It really is. It's not just me, like wanting to get my group off the ground and having artists and writers make presentations and come on this show. It's in concept, I think, one of the most important things because by raising the level of significance of minority views, of different viewpoints, we will find a higher ground that ultimately will result in broader consensus. I know that seems paradoxical. How? By creating more diversity, would you gain more consensus? But that's exactly what happens. Because then what happens is you move into a realm of mutual respect, so that you're not criticized and called names or called some kind of bogus, or what's the word I'm looking for? A freak or a crackpot, or not taken seriously. I always use the example of UFOs. I mean, you watch TV, and whenever the subject comes up, there's a ha ha ha, and the sideward glance that the TV, what's his name, the anchor looks, at the other anchor and just smiles, ha ha ha, because they don't take it seriously, and that's the way all this stuff is. And you know what? It actually, you can laugh about it, you cannot take it seriously, but you know what? We all lose. We all lose that when that happens. Now, when I say diversity and all that, in my view, as I've said many times when I talk about my book, it doesn't mean you go for anything, because in my view, it's grounded by universal love. So it's not like I'm saying, well, yeah, let's hear from the Nazi today. Yeah, let's hear from the guy from ISIS who wants to chop people's heads off and burn people alive, and praise to Allah because of that. Yeah, no, it's not that at all. So it's not just about another opinion. Your opinions need to be grounded in love. It's not grounded in hate. You can have opinions grounded in hate. You're not welcome on my show. You're not going to present that to my group. Why should I? Because you know why? Because hate is not rational. Morality is a species of rationality. And so therefore it's a little bit more advanced in rationality, because it's, being rational ultimately means accepting love as the guidance of human behavior. So that has to be made clear. It's not like I'm just saying let's have more diversity and let's hear all about hatred and you believe in killing and you believe in robbing banks. Okay, let's hear from you. Come on. I'm not saying that at all. But within the grounds of love, which is love thy neighbor as thyself, which is to understand your needs and understand my own needs, which is to appreciate you and to appreciate myself, but to see how it all plays out in the context of the situation. It's the context. It's the situation that drives the ultimate conclusion of what love actually means in context. It's not love is not an abstract thing. It's a very concrete thing. So I wanted to get that make that clear, because how could it be that a broad cross-section of views can reach greater consensus? Because it's all grounded by love. So you can be a libertarian, or you can be a socialist, or you can be a this, or you can be a that, and yet if it's guided by love, there always is the possibility for consensus building. You don't have to have universal agreement. We'll never have that. Hopefully not. Who would want it? But under the guidance of love, agreement becomes possible. And so that's what I'm talking about. I want to make sure that there's no mistake that because I want a diversity of opinion, that for diversity of views that go outside the mainstream, that everything and anything is acceptable. It's not. But there is huge, broad diversity under loving intention. Now, so let's go back to what I was talking about before I left for the break. So there is a little bit of Herbert Spencer. Herbert Spencer is often considered to be the first libertarian. But there's really a lot more to Herbert Spencer than that. He also had a really bad rap. He coined the word the phrase "survival of the fittest," actually. And I'm not sure if he's the first person to use the word evolution. I don't think so. But some of these terms he actually wrote just before his book Social Statics came out before Darwin's book and The Origin of Species, and so he was really ahead of his time. But he has a bum rap because he often is depicted as the survival of the fittest. It's all about surviving. And so therefore it's cruel. He really wasn't. He was, in fact, he was way ahead of his time in, I believe in, I could be wrong about this, but like Mill in recognizing, the issues of the repression of women back in the 19th century. I could be mistaken. I know Mill was Spencer. I'm not sure, but he was. He actually favored, I think, cooperative labor unions. Doesn't sound like a libertarian in that score, and so he was a very interesting person. But the thing here is that I'm making a connection, association between the regulation that he was opposed to. And the regulation, the non-state regulation that is in the form of cultural monopoly, you might say, the mainstream. Because whether it's the state or whether it's the culture that is narrowing and repressing the free expression of ideas, not because of its made illegal or anything like that in terms of what is it doesn't have to be made illegal. There's so much stress against just expressing a different contrary point of view that it might as well be illegal. And so you see there is a convergence. The herd mentality does not have to be enforced by laws. Basically what it comes down to, like the overregulation, mainstream publishers and mainstream movie makers, more than anything, these things feed the herd. That's what we're doing. We're feeding the herd. And so once again, I want to stress that Nietzsche and Spencer, who are very, very different, Spencer was, lived, I would say, a generation before Nietzsche. They were basically contemporaries. I think Nietzsche lived longer, but they're basically contemporaries. But there is some definitely lines of commonality there. Okay, so the whole thing kind of goes round and around and around because I want to develop, I want to do my bit to create an organization that invites alternative thinkers and so that they can be taken seriously. And I'm arguing that this should happen on multiple levels in multiple venues. And, I mean, the whole thing was the news media. Do you think the news media takes these ideas seriously? No, they don't. As a matter of fact, they don't take those ideas serious. You never hear about them. The media is controlled by, I think, 5 or 6 companies. Now, the internet is a glorious thing. The internet is, I would say, unless it becomes regulated, there is a threat that it's still that's still possible. But the internet is a friend of independent publishing. I mean, a lot of this is really a creature of the internet. Amazon, of course, like I mentioned, it's really gone a long way. But the thing is, still not nearly good enough, because you talk about the internet and all the access of information, but still the main media control things. We're on this radio station right now. All these little radio stations. You think we're making a dent in the mainstream culture? You know, let's be honest. The mainstream still controls, and this is more onerous than laws. We can change laws. You see, laws can be changed. You cannot legislate a change in cultural norms. You cannot legislate an open mind. You see, this is extremely important. It's very existential. And what's happened generally in the past is we just wait for somehow, some way, the paradigm to shift, or some new idea will take storm, and eventually, you know, and things do change. But the thing is that it's done in a the way it's done is it's done in such a way that I'm afraid that the evolution of culture sometimes is not what it could be, because the direction of the masses is not a guarantee for a glorious destiny. I think that's a mistaken notion to think that, well, you know, everything is convergent, everything is a kind of a destiny, a kind of evolution, and in the end, you know, history is going to be what it is. No great man makes a difference, you know, the great man theory. No, everything turns out the way it is. And so really, an individual doesn't make a difference. Everything ultimately is going to come out a certain way because of the mass forces of history ultimately have an inevitability built into it. I don't think so. I think that some of that is true for sure. Some of that is clearly true. I mean, historical forces have a kind of intrinsic direction it goes in. Sure. However, a little push one way or the other can make a huge difference. So while there is the force of history, whether we end up happy or sad, whether we survive or blow ourselves up, is not destined, because the little things make a difference. And so what I'm talking about here ultimately is extremely important. As a matter of fact, and this is an expression I'm not, you know, you've probably heard this expression, the little things are the big things. The little things are indeed the big things. And I truly believe that the little lies, you know, the little crimes, those things really are pernicious and insidious, and these little things build up and degrade society. So the little things are the big things. What I'm talking about are little things, right? Begin to respect alternative ideas, take them more seriously, at least allow them to circulate. Do not repress them. In fact, basically what I'm saying, I want to encourage them rather than to repress them. If you encourage them and it still doesn't go anywhere, fine. You know, that's okay. So by encouraging this kind of conversation, then you make possible the big things in consensus, in science and technology. When you allow alternative points of view to come into play and somehow new ideas form that bridge the gap. And that happens in culture as well. It happens in philosophy. It happens in the arts. It happens in all life. So it's not all just like it's going to all end up that way. So therefore, if you're in the minority, you got an alternative point of view, doesn't matter. I don't think so. I really don't. Well, anyway, we're getting to the near the end of the show. I just want to once again harp on my major theme today, which is the new site I created, www.creativityexpo.net. Creativityexpo.net. I hope you visit there and join and go to the message board and use that prospective presenters forum and introduce yourself or send me an email at radio@arthurdschwartz.com and or my other email, info@integralhypnosis.com. And if you have something to say, if you've been working at something you believe in strongly, and you're maybe reticent or afraid to share with others, now is the time to do it. So I really invite you to let me know that you exist, and I want to help you realize your dream as well. Like I said, I wish someone out there else started a group like this, because I would like the opportunity to present my book, my writing as well, and not have to necessarily form my own platform, rather doing it on someone else's platform. Not that I haven't done that, but that's what I'm trying to do. And so, yes, I'm pleading for authors, filmmakers, and others to challenge convention and weaken paradigms, and I want them to come onto my show, and if you're in the Boston area, to present to my group. Okay, so I think we're going to just wrap it up in a minute. Just need to get something for a second here. I think I've covered most of the things I want to talk about. And so this will conclude our show for today. Thank you again, Scott. This concludes tonight's broadcast. For links to my book, Ethical Empowerment, my philosophical counseling and hypnotherapy practice, and the Social Philosophizers Club, please visit arthurdschwartz.com. And this is Arthur D. Schwartz reminding you to live well and think deeply. Until next time, good night, everybody.